Good afternoon. Welcome in this QX Talks. Today I'm here together with Parimal Singh, Vincent Wijnen, and my name is Rick Marcelis. I will be your host today. And the subject of this QX Talks is turbocharging IT delivery teams, the magic of platform enablement. So you're going to learn what platform enablement is all about. So first, let's start with some introductions. So Parimal, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Parimal Singh. I'm a senior quality architect and a product owner within Sojati. Around 17 years of experience in various domains, and last 10 years mainly in quality assurance. So that's me.
All right. Vincent Wijnen, automation consultant. Been working at Sojati for 15 years and mainly work as a traveler, where I visit many of our clients and help them out with problems related to automation, testing, agile, and whatever else ails them. And I try to solve them mainly through an automation lens, but if needed, other lenses can apply as well.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Now, of course, the first question is, what is platform enablement? And actually, we would like to know what you as an audience think of this. So you should have a chat possibility or a Q&A. Is it the chat or the Q&A? I asked Toprak, who is our technician today.
It's a poll, so
no, there's not a poll.
Oh.
They have to do it in the poll is later.
Oh, my bad.
Okay, now, so for the people listening, think about what is the first word that comes to mind for you, and then please put it in. You can see the Q&A. Yeah? So yeah. So put it in the Q&A. What are words that you think of with platform enablement? And then Toprak is going to be your voice.
Really curious.
Curious what people come up with.
Yeah, how they experience it, because I've heard so many different explanations, and it also really depends on the perspective, how you perceive it. So I'm actually quite curious.
Yeah.
And it's a broader term. So people do use platform enablement or platform engineering for broader things. So we may hear a lot of different perspectives from everyone.
Are some things coming in?
No, at the moment, nothing.
Well, I think then we should not wait for it. Later we'll come back to you, Toprak, and see what things come in. But then I would like to ask Parimal first. So please, what things would come to mind, or what is it?
Yeah, I'll give a quick background of, or maybe a quick history, how these things are forming up and why a platform enablement came into existence. When we go back in 10, 15 years, then the waterfall was the word. Waterfall methodology was used in almost all organizations, and we used to have kind of bigger organizations to have a COE kind of organizations within the organization or department, where life was very strict for everyone. They used to have, okay, this is a tool. If you want to do a QA automation or test automation or anything, what you want to do, the COE organization had a standard tool, standard licenses, and you have to always go through them, learn a tool to do any kind of automation or performance testing or whatever you want to automate within your organization. And then comes the agile world. Then everyone said, yeah, we need freedom. We need to explore things. We need to be innovative. And then the world opened up. Every team wanted to do automation, and they said, now we don't want to go through what COE is saying. We will have our own tool. Everyone started experimenting with their own tool. And it took us a few years, 1 or 2 years. The organization was flooded with the tools and flooded with the frameworks. And then suddenly a new challenge coming up. How do we manage those frameworks? How do we manage those tools? It's impossible to manage so many tools because everyone is having their own tools in their own team. And those challenges was coming up. And then a lot of organizations started saying, we need to do something about it. We also have to have the openness and the innovation part of the agile world, but we also need to do something in a way that we structure the thing or we make it in a more open way, open environment. And then something started building an enablement team within the organization. And the enablement team was not like a COE, because COE was quite a strict team when it was formed in waterfall world. Enablement team was more an open team that was more to help the organization. And what they were doing, they were building up the frameworks. So all the work what team has to go through in the life cycle of an automation, whether it's a QA automation or a CI/CD pipeline, whatever they have to do, there's kind of repetition of work which every team has to do. That whole repetition of work was done by the enablement team, and enablement team was giving the opportunity or enable other teams to go into an automation journey. So that was the reason why enablement team came up, and now there is a quite standard term called platform enablement team, which is taken up by a lot of organizations now. So this platform enablement team is basically what they are doing is bringing efficiency, speed, and quality of IT deliveries. That's what they are doing, and they are giving the empowerment to the team with some guidance, not restricting them, but making them open to do that. So that's the brief history behind the platform enablement team.
Okay, Vincent, some additions?
The history, the timeline you explained, where first it was big organizations, tool definitions were strict. I recognized that completely when I started out at my first client 15 years ago. It was exactly like that. The organization dictated the tool. The organization dictated how you would use it, where you would get the license, what training you could do. And basically all of these steps in between I've seen. So you're very recognizable. And what I think is interesting in that is the supporting function that you have to make sure that teams don't have to do all these repetitive themes, as we say, reinvent the wheel all over again. Because if you have 10 teams and 10 teams want automation, you don't want 10 teams building up their own automation framework without communication. And that's where, well, especially for my area of expertise, which is test automation, where these platform teams come in really handy to help these teams do that way more efficient. So very recognizable and interesting to hear as well.
Yeah, well, so that's sort of a kickoff of what platform enablement is all about. Did we in the meantime get some feedback already?
Technical questions. So it was because I showed the poll instead of the questions. There was just a misunderstanding there.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but I already answered those questions.
Okay, good. Okay, very good. Then let's see. So to make a platform enablement work, I think you need two types of things. So you need a platform enablement team that supports, and you need the teams that are supported. How does this collaboration work? How is it set up?
Yeah. So basically, when you look at an organization, the way you said, the teams who are supported, these are the consumers. So it's basically IT for IT, you can say, where there's a consumer side of the team, which are the product team or feature teams who needs these kind of automation within their work. And there's a team who creates those kind of frameworks or enable the consumers. So there's a demand and supply kind of situation here. And so some of the organizations, what they are doing, usually how this happens is very organic growth within the organization. There's one or two teams who are really far ahead in the game within an organization. They really show the way. Oh, they can do CI/CD, they can do a lot of things, and they can also make some kind of standard frameworks which can be used by other organizations, more like a inner sourcing thing. And once that happens, then organization and the higher up organization, they also start thinking, okay, these guys are really doing great, and maybe if the way they are working, other organizations also follow them, then it's great help to the organizations or other departments. And they carve out this team and try to create a kind of enablement team. That's happening in a lot of organizations now. And once that department is created, and it also needs a lot of support from the higher up management, CIO level, where they need to have that confidence. And once this carved out team is out, and then this team is responsible for the enablement, who also have the experience within the product team. So they have created the framework, they have used it, And now they know the challenges. So when they come out of the team, they become the enablement team, standalone. Then they can create an experiment with a lot of frameworks and service all the consumers.
A concrete example to add to that, I've been running one of these teams at one of our larger banks, and they wanted test automation for 4 teams. So naturally, what they did is they sent all the testers on a Java training and expected them to be able to do automation after 3 days of training, which was, of course, not how the world works, still doesn't. So we noticed a lot of frustration within the teams that they wanted to make time for automation, but they couldn't. So that's when I was hired together with somebody else. And they put us in the team and said, you help them set up automation. But what we noticed is that what I was doing in one team, the other person was doing basically the same in the other team. So that, and the other 2 teams that didn't have an automation engineer didn't get anything done. So what happened is I decided to split up, or to split from the team and to form a separate platform team, an automation team that really focused on setting up a test framework. And if you talk about how should this work, one of the very first things we did is we made the framework. So we built up a test framework in the tool they were using, but we did not automate any test cases for them. Because if we as a platform team start automating test cases, we are taking testing responsibility out of the teams. And I felt that that was a very bad idea. The testing responsibility is always supposed to remain in the teams. So we built the tool they could use to take that responsibility and to build the actual test cases. So we started doing like the really technical stuff, made the framework in a way that you could fill in some stuff in an Excel sheet and use that to automate things, and supply that framework and the Excel sheet as a template to all the teams. So that's where the supply and demand dynamic started. But what I also noticed is it was really successful, and we started growing. And eventually, we had 5 people, and one of the main roles I defined for these teams is the sales role, because I noticed that a lot of these teams are populated by really technical people, and technical people love tools. You give them a tool, they start building the entire world in that stuff, but they forget a very important thing. If you don't talk to your client, if you don't talk to your user and just say, here, this is a good tool, use it, then the teams are going to say, nah, we don't need this. And that's what we did, is we defined an explicit sales role. I took it up, naturally. So I went around and asked the teams, what do you need? What problems are you facing that you can't solve? Are there any new things coming up that maybe we can help with? And I created a funnel of work. So they were like, yeah, now that you mention it, this is something that's really annoying me. Putting test data in the environment is super difficult. And I'm like, great, I'm going to take that, put it on the backlog. And then, because we had our own backlog as a platform team, refined it, built it, and delivered it in a demo. And that's how that dynamic was expanded. But it needs somebody who does the communication, the sales part. Because if you just get a bunch of really technical people and put them in a corner, they're going to build great stuff that nobody uses.
Yeah.
And that was for me a very important lesson, that you need technical people to build your product, but you also need somebody to do the communication. And that's generally not one of the very technical people, because they tend to be better at code rather than human language.
Yeah.
So and that's how we set up that dynamic that you talked about, and it worked extremely well. Yeah. They were really pleased, and it was one of the most fun assignments I did in my career.
Yeah, and I can relate to it, the sales part or marketing. So I call it marketing of the tools. So in my previous assignment, where I was working as a product owner of one of these enablement teams, we exactly have the same situation. We have a great tool, and then everything was there. We had a great product catalog, and everything was on the shelf. But okay, where are the users?
Yep.
And then the challenge starts: how to bring users on board, and that is one of the toughest tasks, because users, we are building it for users, and they know if they start using it, it will benefit them, but they need to know. So the marketing, so we try to do a lot of marketing by going to different teams or going to different drives, different town halls, where we can show our capabilities. Okay, these are the tools, and one of the important thing what we can also do is make some model teams. So what we try to do is because these people who are really techie, they really want to see the latest and greatest things in the market. And then once you have one team who are using it, then they feel the FOMO, they're feeling the miss out. And they also want to use the latest and greatest tools. So that was, pick one team, let them use the whatever framework you are building, and then those teams can give a demo to the rest of the world, which will make people feel, oh, they're missing out something, and they start asking for more and more.
Interesting dynamic. The way we solved it, we also noticed in the beginning that people were like reluctant. So we started doing, during every demo, every 2 weeks, we started doing a user of the sprint, an automation user of the sprint award. So we basically looked at how people were using it, and the person that was most active, we did like a little award show, and we had a can of stroopwafels every demo, and with all ribbons around it, and we did an award. So we asked them for it and told everyone, so we award this person our automation user of the sprint because they did this and they did this and they did this, which was actually really smart. It wasn't my idea, because it really told people how you could use our product. It showed them that there was somebody doing it very successfully, and we also showed them the appreciation, which meant that sometimes right after the meeting, people came to us and said, no, the thing he was doing, that was actually really interesting. Can you also show me how it's done? So we created visibility with our little award show, but it prompted more and more questions. So we defined an additional role for that, which was the support engineer, who specifically had the job not finding new work, that was the sales that was doing that, but helping current users. So somebody came to our team and said, hey, it doesn't work, can you come over and look? Support engineer did that. So we had engineers building the framework, the sales getting the new work, and the support engineers specifically focusing on helping people use the product more successfully. And we created visibility during the demos. Quite amazing, and it worked really well, and it really helped basically it showed several testers that if they weren't using it, they were wasting time, because their colleague was using it and was super happy, even getting stroopwafels. So that really, they missed it out, and it worked quite well.
Okay, well, so we have now seen the basics of what is platform enablement. Let's try to dive a little deeper. Just a question to Toprak. Can we try again and this time do the poll question?
I will try if we can share it again, because we already shared it.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, in the meantime, I can announce what the idea is. So the idea is that our audience, you get the question, how do platform enablement teams contribute to software development speed and efficiency? So how do these teams help? How do the platform enablement teams help to support the other teams with development speed and efficiency? And we can't show the poll again, but do we have a Q&A or a chat functionality that people can send a message to you?
Yes, they can send messages.
Okay, well, so please, and which do they use? Do they use Q&A or do they use chat? Q&A.
Yeah, they can both use them.
Yeah, well, now which
I have
one
them both
do you
in
want
front of me.
Yeah.
Oh, you see them both?
Yes.
Oh, well, so people can choose what they want to do. Well, so in the chat, please put your idea about how can these teams support other teams. So how can the platform enablement teams support other teams? And there are things you can think of, like by outsourcing tasks or by reducing the technical knowledge in the other teams, or by providing tools and frameworks that weren't there, or eliminating need for quality engineering and testing tasks, or whatever you can come up with. So what in your idea are the main things that such a platform enablement team can do? Do we get any things here?
Maybe an idea. I can show the results so the audience can see the question.
Well, you can just read out
and they can say like 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's applying for themselves.
That's fine.
Yeah, but are people already typing now?
At the moment, no.
Oh, okay.
Then you can show it, and they can just answer A or B. So you can't see the totals, but we do get the answers. And I'm interested.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm interested in the answer.
I get one. Tooling may be standardized on tools and platforms used.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Standardized on tools and platforms.
Yes, definitely.
So I get by providing tools and frameworks for testing and deployment.
Yeah. And that's an interesting one. It's testing and deployment.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah. So my follow-up question would be, to do what? So do you just give the tool here, you have a license and good luck with it, or is there anything more going on? So that would be my follow-up question.
Okay. Which Parimal and you are going to answer later during the session.
Definitely, because there is an answer.
Any more?
Yes, provide advice on testing techniques.
Okay.
On testing techniques. Oh, that's a nice one.
I love it. I know an example.
Okay, so keep that one also in mind. Any more?
Not at the moment. So
not at the moment.
Close.
Yeah, well, let's close it and then.
Okay, closing it now. Yes.
So, yeah, these platform enablement teams, one of the things they use are so-called frameworks, and that probably aligns with the idea that the first answer that we got, standardized tools and platforms. Can you tell a little bit more about these frameworks? And you call it the magic of frameworks.
Yeah. So basically, when we look at the software development or product delivery teams, they always have some common things. Like you can take an example like front-end testing. They have some API testing. They have performance testing. They have security testing. They have reporting things to do. So there are a lot of things which are common in multiple teams. And what platform teams does is they segregate, okay, functional test, what all capabilities we need. So we talk in terms of capabilities, and for every capability, we, as in my previous assignment, we were trying to create a framework for each capability. And when we try to create frameworks, then we see the framework we choose should fit most of the teams. But one size doesn't fit all. It always happens that there are some teams which are not able to do it. And by doing that, at least what we are trying to do, creating frameworks for different test capabilities or different capabilities, not only test, and trying to create a paved road out of it. So that we go into paved road, and if a certain tech stack is being used by certain teams, they can follow a paved road where they have tooling set, and they just need to follow the paved road to do their whole QA cycle. So that's
such a paved road is a standard set of tools that most people can use.
Yeah.
And so if you just have a common situation, you just use the paved road and you don't have to think about anything.
Concrete example that I've seen at one of the banks, they basically said, you're free to choose. Pick whatever tool you want. However, these three tools, we have a community that shares information about this. We have security templates already pre-made. So if you run it on your environment, you can already be sure that it's compliant. And we already have some manuals available. So pick whatever you want. But if you take these tools, this small list, these 4 tools, for instance, then these three things are already taken care of. And that's what the paved road metaphor technically means. You can either walk on the road and it's easy, but if you can't walk on the road because there's a reason and you have to go through the bush, it's harder, but you can still do it. But you have to take care of your own security templates, your own manuals, and there aren't a lot of people to share knowledge with. And that they didn't restrict anyone, but after like 2 years, the majority of teams were using the 4 tools they support a little better, simply because it was easier. And that's the paved road principle. Big fan. I love it. I think that's an excellent way to do it.
Yeah, okay. And then these platform enablement teams primarily support these paved roads.
Yes, the tools on the paved road. So if you don't want to use it, you don't. But if you use it, there's a team supporting you. They can help you, and a lot of stuff is easier.
Yeah. Another one just mentioned was testing and deployment. Yeah, what I wonder is, and of course it's hard to ask what they exactly mean, but would it be deployment to their own environment or to any environment? Do you have any experience with what platforms do in this context?
Yeah. And when we talk about platform enablement, so when in my previous organization where we were working, so we had an enablement team for release engineering, we have enablement team for the quality assurance, and we have enablement team for the observability and monitoring. So it was a sync. So when we are creating a paved road consists of these three components, and also the security. So everything was all four teams were contributing to a paved road. So when you look at the release engineering team, then their role was to do the deployment and create the CI/CD pipeline. And from the testing side or QA side, our role was in the quality gatekeeping. We putting up all our tools and all frameworks in that pipeline, so that teams who want to use it, they can just use our framework and do the scenarios in the pipeline. So that's the testing and deployment part of it.
So I don't think a platform team should deploy the actual software for teams. I think they should be able to do it themselves, because it's their responsibility to deliver whatever they're working on to production. However, you can't expect every team to have a pipeline expert. It's ridiculous, because you need too many and they have too little work within each of the teams. And that's what the platform team supplies. So it's support with, and or for instance, as you say, providing certain building blocks that they can pull into Azure and then already have a default setup that they just have to add some parameters and they're good to go. Yeah, excellent.
But what I notice here is something I've noticed quite often, is that basically you have three different layers of knowledge needed about using of the tools. And the most simple level is people that just have to do something with the tool, for example, automate their test cases, and they use pre-created scripts. So the second level is people that can make those scripts, and the third level is I call it the deep down technical stuff, and that's the part that the platform enablement team does, so that the other teams can just focus on using the platform for their day-to-day jobs.
Exactly, because the people in that third layer are very rare. So you can't have.
But you also need only a few.
Yeah, but this way you only need like two, and they can support many teams with their automation problems.
Yeah, and in the situation where the idea is that every team is on their own, some teams will have an expert like that, and other teams won't, and then some teams go very well, and the others struggle all the time. So
yeah, I think the notion that teams should be self-sufficient is wholly outdated. I think it's ridiculous. IT is way too big and complex for teams to have all skills in one team, and I think platform teams are a natural evolution of that thought. Where you start realizing that it's ridiculous, and you only need a few experts in very certain areas, and you can combine them in platform teams.
And also one notion is that it's not about self-sufficient is really impossible, because nobody in the world is self-sufficient. No country is, so no team is self-sufficient. But what we strive for is autonomy. More and more teams should be autonomous. And autonomous does not mean self-sufficient. Autonomous, they need to have enough framework, tooling, and everything, so that they can do their things themselves without being asking for help from other teams. So that's why enablement team comes in the picture, when they create the framework, tooling, everything, so that the teams who are actually building the business value, they can do it autonomously. They just go. Usually, all the organizations, they used to have this kind of what you call the developers portal, or those kind of portals where you can go, or you go in a GitHub environment and just clone the framework, and just you're good to go.
For me, you just mentioned it, business value, and I think there's a very important aspect there in value. And often I still hear organizations say, yeah, it's about the business value. It's not. It's not the only type of value you have. there are different types of value. And I think platform teams are a very clear evidence that there's a different one. There's business value. It's the stuff you deliver to production. But I can tell you from experience that all the automation code I built my entire career has never, ever reached any production environment. Very simple. So there was no direct end user benefit whatsoever. Indirect, sure, but no direct benefit. I often call it, for instance, team value. It's value you deliver to the team, and the frameworks a platform team supplies delivers team value. The business generally doesn't care about it. Whether you have a pipeline or a developer manually unzipping zip files on some production server, for them the end result is the same. Production software appears and runs. But for teams, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, but the thing business people probably won't really notice but will get is that things can be done easier and thus faster. So the platform enablement teams basically make sure that you get the right quality at the right moment, and you can do more things in the same amount of time.
Yeah, what I initially said about the platform enablement contributes to enhance efficiency, speed, and quality of IT. That's the role of platform enablement. It is enhancing. It's not doing it directly, but it is enabling other teams to be more efficient, more to have speed, and also bring quality in their IT deliveries. So.
Yeah, well, enhancing, it sounds like a side job, and it isn't. I would say they deliver team value.
Yeah.
So they are vitally important for any organization, but they deliver a different kind of value than the value the business is expecting. But there's more than just the end user. There's also your teams that are technically users as well, and they're delivering value to them.
Yeah. So if you see in the layer Y, there is a product team. So every product has their own team who are creating a business value for the consumer or customer, and behind there is a enablement team who is creating that team value, who is creating that efficiency, or is making more efficient, bringing more quality in the system. Because the more you automate, more you can test.
It's basically like Makita making drills for a carpenter. Me as an end user, I just bought a house. I don't really care about what tools the carpenter brings as long as he makes me a great door. But so I don't care about the value Makita technically delivers to the carpenter, but I do care about the value the carpenter delivers. But for the carpenter, he's in a sense also a consumer, just as product teams are also consumers. And that's where that dynamic shifts. And I think that platform teams are a great way to emphasize the importance of that team value. Because if you do not deliver value to your teams, they will not be able to deliver business value. You often hear, there's no time for that automation. Let's first go live and we do it afterwards. It's the classic. You see it everywhere, and that never works. It always becomes like a swamp where you bog down. If you don't support your teams, they won't be productive. It's simple as that.
Yeah, and then if you go one level up, now what is happening? The world is moving towards DevOps, or you can say DevSecOps, both ways. What is moving towards? As and when we are moving towards DevOps, more and more responsibilities are going towards the development team or DevOps team, you can say, or IT delivery team, where they have to also take care of the development and also the ops part, also the quality engineering part. So they are doing a lot of things. And what is happening because of this? They have so much to do. Their cognitive load is high. The really high cognitive load, so they have to use their time or the bandwidth to do a lot of other stuff, or then the business value what they're working on. So they have to write 4 pieces of code, but for that, all the things they are doing in the DevOps team is huge. So, and that's where the enablement team comes. Also, the importance of the enablement team is getting bigger and bigger, because to support those DevOps team, enablement team can create really great frameworks, tools, so that the end team, the product team, really their cognitive load is gone or is low, and they can focus more on their 4 lines of code than doing the rest of the stuff.
It's like asking the carpenter to build his own drill.
Yeah,
and there's no sense in that. But we have been doing that a lot in IT, telling people to build their own tools. It's ridiculous.
Well, that brings me to the question: can you give some examples of the kind of frameworks that platform enablement teams supply? Yeah, because we have been talking about platform enablement and in general terms, but do you have practical examples? What kind of things do they deliver to the teams?
Yeah, I can give, but Vincent is more technical in this one. But
I can do it as well.
I can give you some examples, like for functional tests, or in the previous thing, we're building a Cypress framework. We're building a robot framework. We're building playwright. We're building a framework for karate. We're building performance tests using Gatlin framework, or we're using check marks, or we're using GitHub Advanced Security. So we're using a lot of these kind of tools to build a framework, and these are the ready-to-use frameworks for the teams. So teams just need to clone the framework, write your own script, and that's it. Just go ahead. So you have 4 scenarios. You have to just write 4 scripts. You don't have to worry about the whole building of the frameworks. And also, we were making it more and more in a way that you also don't have to go inside the Jira or the Fire scale, what we're using there, to write your scenario. You write your scenarios in your script, run it, it will automatically update the Fire scale with the new scenarios, or update the Fire scale with whatever test run you have done. So we're also taking care of the test management. We're using test control tools like Report Portal, where Report Portal is also publishing all the reports, whatever you're running in the pipeline. So we're trying to create those kind of things integrated within the framework, so that somebody who's using the framework doesn't have to do these kind of extra stuff.
Yeah, it was the same for us. So in the situation where I was running that automation team and taking up, for instance, a sales role, one of the things that happened is that it had to do with payments, and they said, yeah, we have this mainframe environment and it spits out these files in this specific format, and we need to be able to reproduce them. So we asked them for a bunch of examples, coded a keyword that could generate these files based on Excel sheet, demoed it to them, and then supplied that keyword to them. So we were doing a lot of coding in order to be able to create that specific payment file from a mainframe. And the only thing they did is just use the keyword, add some parameters, press play, and the reports came in their email. So we took a lot of the tougher coding problems away from them and supplied them with a keyword, and in turn they could use these keywords like basically Lego blocks to build up their own test case, put some information in it, press play, and the test was done. And so on a framework level, we supplied the framework that ran the keywords and created the logging and the reporting, etc. We created the technical keywords, but that was it. We didn't know and didn't care what exactly happened with these keywords, because it's software that others were using. So we gave the keywords to them. They built lots and lots of different test cases. And whenever it didn't work, they came to us, and sometimes we had to bug fix it or create a new keyword. And that's how we created value as a platform.
Okay, well, that gives us more insight. Now, this all sounds very nice, but I can't imagine that it's only a perfect world. So there must be some challenges in these platform enablement teams as well.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenge what we had, I can give an example, is we're busy creating our frameworks, and we create like an example of karate framework. We have a karate framework, which is version 1. Next sprint, we add some new features to the framework. We make come with 1.1, and then we add some security features in the next sprint, and then so our versioning is increasing. Now the challenge is the team started working on a framework which is version 1.1. They cloned the framework. They started writing their scenarios, and they are quite ahead with the 100 scenarios in the framework now. Now we come up with a new framework or a new version of framework. Now the challenge is also how we do the version management of these frameworks, because when we are building the framework, we should also push teams to start using the new version. But then the team doesn't come back to us. So looking for a new version till the time they have an issue. So they keep working on the same framework, building up the scenarios, and they can come to us, the enablement team, then we can provide them a new version. But when we provide a new version, it was also challenging for us to understand how we do retrofit. So whatever 100 scenarios they have, we need to also make sure that it works with version 1.1 and 1.2 as well. So that is still a big challenge within the platform teams or enablement teams, that when we create these kind of frameworks, we have to be very careful about the version management. Otherwise, we're creating another monster within the organization, because then we have like same framework with 100 versions. 100 teams are using different versions, and then again we're back to the square one.
Yeah, one of the problems, so recognizable, that one, but one of the problems that we ran into is very simply budget. So the platform teams were often perceived as overhead because we didn't deliver any business value. None of our stuff went to production. So we frequently had people asking the nasty question, can't we reduce that team in size? And I think that in there is a very important lesson for any platform team, how to deliver value, because we never had to argue that they shouldn't send us away. Because the moment somebody came to our desk and started asking these questions, or this conversation erupted, it was the teams that said, hell no, you're not touching our platform team, because they make our life so much easier. If they go, we go. So we didn't have to argue for our own value. It was the teams that said, no. They are really useful to us. We definitely should keep them. And I think that's, for a platform team, the definition of how you should be successful, is that your clients actually tell your company, leave them alone. We need them. They deliver, they help us to, they enable us to deliver the value that you want. So if you send them away, you're not going to get the value you want. But yeah, that is a challenge. And how they solved it is normally, basically the business controlled the entire budget, so everyone. So for them, we were indeed overhead. It's like, as an end user, I'm paying for the drill of the carpenter, which is really weird. And eventually they solved it by splitting the budget, and the manager then became the IT manager, had a small portion of budget, and he paid the platform team. So there was no longer a budget discussion, because whenever they asked a question about us, he said, why do you care? It's not your budget, it's mine. And that made it super easy. But it did show that political and that budgeting discussion was difficult, because not everybody perceived us as equally valuable.
No, and I can imagine if you would not have that centralized budget, then you would have to fight for project budget all the time. Yeah. And basically, my experience is that often projects don't have the major benefit. The major benefit of all these tools and frameworks is in the long run. So if you have a DevOps team, during multiple operation cycles, that's where you get the benefit.
Yeah, and I think that's where visibility is also important. So making your value visible, because it's great having your end user say, no, don't touch them, but it highlights a bigger issue. How do you make visible the work you deliver? And that's also where the sales role comes in, because it was my job on demos to display what value we were bringing. And again, I've seen several teams, platform teams, that also failed because it was mostly technical people. They didn't make it visible, they didn't care about the demo, and after a while everybody was like, what the hell are they doing anyway? And that's when you start to get into trouble, when they're doing budget cuts. So we made it super visible and everybody knew what we were doing, but it is a challenge that platform teams do have to undertake, which is, I think, again, an argument for the sales role.
Another thing that I wonder is, we're talking about basically tooling that supports teams, but currently we see a lot of changes in tooling, especially with all the AI and especially generative AI. Do you think this will also impact these platform enablement teams?
Well, I hope it will make them faster and better able to.
Well, okay, of course, let me be the voice of the enthusiastic people, and that's not my personal opinion, but some people say, okay, these platform enablement teams were great, but in the future we won't need them because we get generative AI, and that's magic.
Could be, yeah, I could be. For instance, if you currently rely on a platform team to supply you with deployment scripts, for instance, I can imagine generative AI being able to generate these deployment scripts as well, based on your file system and coder and whatever. So I can imagine that some things can be replaced, but I will mostly think that it will allow platform teams to scale up even more, to support more teams with less people. Therefore, it remaining the same amount of people, but having more clients. So I think, especially in the short run, I don't think it's going to be the short run, but let's say the medium run, it will empower enablement teams to be more effective. But what happens on the long term, when that stuff gets smarter and smarter, that's going to be, I'm going to need my crystal ball for that.
Yeah, of course. We can't tell what's going to happen in 10 years from now, but on the shorter term, I think that platform enablement teams need to look into prompt engineering to see how you use generative AI to support the other teams. Because one of the things here is that prompt engineering is quite complex and difficult, and you need to have a lot of background knowledge, which the platform enablement teams do have.
So we need a platform team for the platform teams to support them.
Well, you need, probably.
But one of the role of the platform team is also, or enablement team is also, to look for the tools in the market. It's not like you build a framework and that's the framework, because the world is changing so rapidly right now. It's every minute, every day is a different day. And maybe you started building a framework, but within a year, it could be that there are 1,000 times better framework in the market because of the AI. AI is making things better, and the companies are adopting AI very fast. And one of the role is for the enablement team to keep looking for these kind of tools, keep building POCs so that you know which is the greatest tool in the market, which can fit your organization. There are a lot of tools in the market, but not everything fits your organization. You also need to look into your organization size, your organization need, and based on your what I was doing in my team, there were all the engineers who were there. Our role was to keep doing those POCs, keep experimenting. We used to have one new tool experiment every month. We know, okay, there is a new tool on the market. Can we do a POC with that? Can we see what it brings, what value it brings to our organization? And we have a comparison chart in our conference page where we always keep table up to date that we have these 5 tools used for these particular capabilities. What are the benefits, pros and cons for every tool? So we keep that updated so that we know whenever there is a new tool, which is AI or generative AI, then we can also use those tools to see what it can do to the platform enablement. But on a futuristic view, I have a quite different futuristic view when I look at the AI and generative AI. In 10 years, it will be a quite different, whole software world will be different than what we're doing now because of the AI and generative AI.
And what will be that difference?
Yeah, should we fear for our jobs?
No, we always need people who can use it. It's not like it's not do all alone. Like we can talk about QA part of it. So when I look at my crystal ball, I see there is a new user stories coming in. We put on a user story in chatbot or in a generative AI tool. It gives us the complete script. We put the script in the framework, it's running, and it is doing the testing. So one step before, we create a feature. The code is done by the generative AI. It is tested by a generative AI script. But the thing is, it is not a pilot. It is not an autopilot. It is a co-pilot. That's what also GitHub says. They have a co-pilot. So whatever code is written, somebody who knows better coding, they need to look at the code to see if that is correct. Somebody who is good in quality engineering should look at the whole script and see what has been missed by AI. So AI is going to cover a lot of things, but not all. They always need a human intervention. After the code is written by the co-pilot, then a person is needed to check, okay, if the code is 100% correct. When they write the script, then a person is needed with a quality assurance mindset who can check and see, oh, it has missed some scenarios because whatever they're doing is kind of standard thingy. So we will be more smarter in the way we do our work, but the work we are doing, we need more expertise in it. So the generic skill set will go away, but the expertise will have more value. That's what my take when I look at next.
Okay. I'm looking at the time, and we're going rapidly. What I would like to do is first to see if our audience has some questions that we can look into, and after that we'll see some final ideas and statements. So, are there already some questions? Otherwise,
no.
This is the chance for our audience to now answer your question to Parimal and Vincent, and we'll be happy to answer them. And while we're waiting for the people entering these questions, I have a question myself, because one of the things I think is different, at least now as compared to several years ago, is cloud infrastructure. And how does this phenomenon impact or not impact these platform enablement teams?
Yeah, I think the thing with, I think it's already in the infrastructure part. So the infrastructure part is mostly not a direct contribution to the business value, but it's completely essential to be able to deliver any of it. And I think that cloud architecture it has more possibilities, it's becoming more complex if you see what all the different vendors are delivering. I think it's becoming harder and harder to have all this expertise within your team. And I think you get to a point where without a platform team, you simply won't be able to do it. You won't be able to get your teams to, for instance, move to the cloud and to use it properly if you don't support them with it, because it's becoming a world in itself almost that is sometimes quite far removed from what the engineers are regularly used to. And I think that that gap's going to be widening, and that platform teams are the bridge you need in order to cross that gap. So yeah, and I think cloud is in that respect one of the finest examples where I think that platform teams can help out. I mean, I love them for automation because I've done so myself. But if you can only have one platform team to support your organization, it would probably be on infrastructure, and cloud will very likely be a part of it. That's how I look at it.
And when I look at the organization where I have worked in, that enablement team was huge. It's more than size was growing. When I left, I think it was already approaching 100, and there was a dedicated cloud platform team. There was more than 20 people working in the dedicated cloud platform team, and their work was to enable the whole organization to move into the cloud. So that was also, and within our team, when I look at the QA part of it, within our team, we also needed an expertise in the cloud, because when we have to build a framework, our frameworks are built on the cloud, Azure. So we need somebody who really know how to do things on Azure platform. So that within the skill set was also needed within our platform team, so that we can do things on the cloud. So that was quite interesting.
Thanks a lot. So,
yes, we got one question. Should the same tools in all teams be used? For example, only robot framework or only Tosca for automation, or can you enable multiple tools?
I think using the same tool everywhere is a bad idea in itself, because it does not respect the differences in context that you can have in different teams. I mean, if you just look at a team working on an app and a team working on a website, even though those technologies are closely related, it definitely doesn't necessarily mean that you need the same tool. So I think that if you look at a specific automation team, you often see them supporting a single framework, but I do think that it's better to support several. And that's where the paved road principle, of course, comes in. So you could, for instance, say, okay, we need one high-code framework and one low-code framework. So we choose Robot framework for the high-code one, because you can write Python in it. And we use Tosca for the low-code one. But it's still a paved road. If you want to go through the bush, go through the bush all you want. So, but I do think that several choices is better. I do not necessarily think that, you know, enforcing, especially enforcing, but also really focusing on a single tool is a good idea. I think there should always be choice.
Yeah, and
just not too many.
Now, when we talk about testing, functional testing, there are a lot of aspects of testing. You have a front-end testing, you have API testing, you have back-end testing, you have performance testing, security testing. So you need to have a tool supporting a capability. And one tool, no tool in the world is going to support all capabilities. So when we go into the pipeline, we have different test capabilities, and every test capabilities should be mapped with a framework or a tool. And yeah, it could that robot framework and Tosca can live in that two different test capabilities where we need build.
Yeah, well, you can see that in our book, the Quality for DevOps Teams, where we have a picture in chapter 6 with the pipeline and examples of all kinds of tools. And I think there's like 10 different categories of tools, and each category has multiple possible tools. So it is an illusion to think that you can work with only one or a few tools. And that's also what makes it such a dynamic situation, because tools change all the time. And one of the things I guess the platform enablement team also looks into much more than the other teams is the integration of all these tools.
Yeah.
Because every time you change one tool, you have to check all these integrations as well.
Yeah. I think that's interesting, because when I started out, you saw that it was the time of the big suites. So for instance, you had Quick Test Pro, which later became UFT, for automation, and then you had Quality Center on top, and then if you wanted to do performance testing, you could use Fugen for that, and it was all from the same vendor. And they really tried to cover everything because that would guarantee good integration. But the problem was, if you left that paved road and took something else, it didn't integrate at all. And right now, tool suites are becoming, I always call them like hamburgers. You know, lots of different stuff on it, but all the open source tooling is built from the outset with the idea that it cannot do everything and therefore should integrate. So the integration layers of many of these tools are already better from the start, which makes that integration question a lot easier, but also makes it a lot easier to just, you know, pick whatever you need or pick whatever suits your specific situation. So I think the big suite era of single vendor encompassing tool deliveries is long gone, and I think all the better for it.
Yeah, for the last decades.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other question. Is there no risk that the DevOps teams cannot support the software that did not make it, I guess?
Yeah, so that they can't support the software because they didn't make all of it. Yeah, I think that's a cooperation question, right? So but I'm also guessing that the stuff the platform team delivers does not go to production. So whatever happens in production is generally supported by a DevOps team. But I do think that with growing complexity, with the cloud as an example, with generative AI as an example, that is a risk that will slowly become larger and larger, because the more technologies you start using, the more different tools you start using, the harder it becomes to support all of it. I think that's something we should definitely keep an eye on, and that's also why I think, you know, being a vendor like we are, with so many different experiences and so many different clients really helps to keep an eye on all these interactions that are going on and becoming harder and harder.
Yeah.
So I think it's a valid risk.
And that's why also it's also sometimes platform enablement team also act as a knowledge center. So we also bring a lot of knowledge within them. And we also, the good practice within a platform enablement team is have people or engineers really expert engineers you should have in your team who has broader knowledge of multiple tools and things, so that if a team is using a tool which is not supported by platform engineering or platform enablement team, at least they have the knowledge center. They have the expertise in-house, they can support other teams as well. So just want to add one more thing. The platform enablement team is also about the knowledge center and also bringing the community of practice. Yeah, it's also very important, which fosters a community of practice within the organization, where you also need to bring that special interest groups and create those groups. So in the organization, they also people do come and participate in these kind of things, and also share knowledge, and also maybe inner sourcing in future. That's also a good way of bringing knowledge together.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Parimal, for these final ideas. And that brings us to the end of this QX talk. If you would like to know more about platform enablement, then definitely come to the QX Day, and that is on the 19th of September. And because Parimal, together with our colleague Wouter Ruijbroek, will do a presentation on platform enablement. So they will dive deeper. And if you have any other questions, you can come and ask them at the QX Day. So we look forward to seeing you there.
I will be there as well. So
yeah. What session do you have at the QX Day?
I don't know yet.
You don't know yet. Okay, well, so this is the big surprise and cliffhanger for now. But and of course there will be many more. I don't know the exact number, but it's dozens of sessions and a nice expo with all sorts of information you can get about the latest in quality engineering and testing. For example, the new TMAP quality engineering for SAP training course. And well, lots of other stuff. So with that, I would like to thank our audience. I hope you enjoyed it. I think we definitely did. So thank you, Parimal. Thank you, Vincent. And see you next time on the QX Talks.
All right.
Thank you so much.